Hello, welcome back to part 2. We are going to now upgrade from our simple little application where we had a button that did nothing to a program that maybe does something. So to get started with that, we're going to learn about Qt Designer. So I'm going to open, what is it, Qt Creator. And you'll notice that when you first open it, the design tab over here does nothing. It's grayed out. So to start things off, you need to go to New File, select Qt, download here into Files and Classes because we're not creating a whole application. We're not going to be writing C++ ourselves in Qt Creator, so we're just going to choose Qt Designer Form. I'm not terribly familiar with this tool. Choosing Qt Designer Form works for me, and that's enough knowledge right now. Choose main window from your template selection, and let's save it to my Python folder. All right, I found my folder. So choose my folder. I'm gonna call this. What is this? Let's just call it form. Form.ui. Next. Don't need to add anything to it. And voila, we have a beautiful visual GUI designer right here. First things first, we don't need the menu bar or the status bar that it automatically inserts. You can see them over here in the object browser. This is the object browser up here. This is the property browser down here. And you obviously have your list of widgets over here. So let's remove the menu bar. So just right click, remove menu bar, right click, remove status bar. Now we have a nice clean space. Our window is going to be very simple. So what our application that we're going to design is going to be the most simple. Let's go about there. Maybe the simplest app ever. It's going to have a button that says open and a button that says quit. I bet you can guess what the quit button does. And there's also going to be a text box. When you click open, you'll select a file and it will put the contents of that file into the text box. So text editor minus the editing and saving functionality. So a text viewer. Highly useful, very complicated program. First, let's add, first things first. We want our buttons to be next to each other horizontally. So let's add not a spacer, horizontal layout. Let's add it to the bottom of our window. So there's our spacer. Add the push button. Add two push button. And, oh no. All right, select this and move it around. Using the arrow keys I find is useful because it is easy to, move things around. There are two buttons. We also want to have a text box of some kind for things to go into. So we're going to choose plain text edit right over here. Plain text edit. Let's make it good and sizable. Yeah, looks good. Good enough. Now, of course, this does not look good yet. And if we go up to, what is it? Tools, Form Editor. That's it. Preview. Not terribly familiar with all this yet, so you can, there's your shortcut. I should remember that. You can preview it, and that's great. This looks fine. This does nothing. Here's a text box. You can type things, but if you notice, if you resize the window, nothing resizes with it, and your widgets just disappear. So, see, that's not very useful. So we could put this all in our own vertical layout, but there's an easier way. If you right-click on your main window, you can go down to Layout and choose Layout Vertically. Boom. And I believe our shortcut was Alt-Shift-R. Yeah, cool. Now we have, look, a nicely laid out thing. We can resize, everything works. It's beautiful. And stuff like this is the main reason why I'm interested in using a visual designer like this. It also gives me an opportunity to look at the code it spits out and say, hey, look, I can write my code like this. And from what I've seen so far, it seems like it spits out fairly readable code. Machine written, but readable. So this is good. Now, to make these things a little more referenceable, let's set some better names on them. So you can just select your widget and change the name to something, all caps. Let's yell our widget name. Give it some sort of better descriptive name. Which one is this? This is let's say the right one is the quit button. Let's do that. And the left one is going to be the open button. Good. Oh, did I not? Okay. Open button. I put 2 T's in there, didn't I? Good. I suppose that, could work. There are 2 T's in button, but abbreviation is better. So now that we have these, we could scroll down and change the text here. So let's say this is the open one. Look, now we have that. Easier way is just to double click and edit the text of your button. So now we have a text area called Contents Viewer, a push button called Open Button, and a quit button called Quit Button. Now that we have that, we're going to save this. So now we have form.ui, and if we look, open this here, see, this is what it spits out. We have a nice XML description of our UI. And so with that, we're pretty much done with Qt Designer. We have our layout. We visually edited out. There are obviously lots of other properties that you can change here. But for now, let's change our file into a actually Python readable file. There are methods to use that .ui file directly, but I'm going to use the PyQt C5 command. Guessing that means like Python UI compile Qt5 something, all pushed together into PyQt. We're going to call that on form UI. We're going to output it to form.py. And voila, now we look in here. We have a Python file that is just the same as the UI file that designers spat out, but in a Python importable format. So this is just what we started with in the previous video. We're going to get rid of our push button. See, look, and now handy error. Undefined name, Q push button. Thanks, linter. All right, now if we have this, we're going to import form. And now in our example application, we need to do some multiple inheritance from obviously our Qt main window class, and then we also need to inherit the thing to get everything kicked off with the layout we just designed. So as you can see, that is UI underscore main window, and that is UI. And look, it completes for me. So that should all be good. Let's see if it works. I don't think it will. It doesn't. Oh yes, of course it doesn't work, because we have inherited from here, but we have not set anything up. So we, we inherited this class from this class, but we did not call the setup method. So now we need to call self.setupUI. In theory, nothing. No good. And of course, setup UI needs to know where it's being called from. And look, we run it, and we have a much bigger window that has now 2 buttons that do nothing, and a text area where you can type things. Cool. So we're getting on the way here, and I've noticed how this is all totally native. Everything's fluid now. So because we're using the layout manager, so I can full screen this. I can, run everything normally. It looks native because it is native. That's all great. Now, the next thing we need to do is actually connect these things connect our UI pieces to do something. So what we want to do is we want to say, what was it? Let's say quit, our quit button. No, I think it was click.connect, and we want to run, nope, no semicolon. This is not JavaScript. So we're going to give ourselves a method here that does something from the Q core application. I'm just going to paste that in right here. This is our require, our import statement that we will need. Now that we have that, we can just call Q core application dot instance dot quit. No semicolon. Oh, did I do it again? No. Sir Delio. Too many blank lines, not enough blank lines. Thanks, Flake8, you're great. Okay, cool. Let's see if this actually, no! I had it right the first time. Got connect.click. Still nothing. Because it's clicked.connect. Cool, we got our window back. Still type gibberish. Clicking the open button does nothing, and hopefully, yeah, clicking the quit button, quit does what you expect. That's great. Okay, we got one thing working. Now, we're gonna go set up the open button, which is gonna do a little bit more. So we can duplicate this, and we called it the open button, I believe, and we know now it's .click.connect and self. Let's define a method for ourselves called open file. Elf. For now, what this needs to do is open a file dialog, obviously, because that's the way that you ask a user to select a file. So to do that, I'm gonna just put this right in here. So, okay, we have this thing class called QFileDialog, and obviously we have to import it to be able to use it. I could just be doing, from PyQt5.qt widgets import star, but whatever. I like to know what I'm actually working with. Keep things neater. So if we want to, let's say this is going to be our file name. Let's just say that that's what this does. Let's see if this works. So we have everything connected. File dialog should work. Look, still opens. That's good. Click open. Hey, look. And this is our little thingy. We can choose the file that we're working on. We can open it, and nothing happens in theory. So yeah, look, it printed it out. Looks like we've got our file name and then the filter applied. I'm sure there's a use for that, but we're not going to use it here. And it looks like we're getting back a tuple. Cool tuple. So just to be really descriptive, since we're gonna need to get out that first piece of what's returned, we're gonna say we don't need that anymore, and we're gonna get that first file name. We're gonna open it up just for read only, because we don't need to write anything. This is a file viewer that we're doing, remember? Of course, that could be a future thing that we do. Add a menu, add a save, let people edit stuff. That'd be cool, because currently they can edit it, but it won't save, which is kind of confusing. So let's just make sure this works. If we just open it, say we open a file, yes, invalid file, because I gave it the whole tuple. Quit button still works, that's awesome. So let's give it the first item. We select the file, open, and no errors, good. Cool, so now the key part, this is the key line of our whole little application here. We're going to set the contents of that file, which is f.read, to the value of the text field, which we called, let's look, we called it contents viewer. Contents viewer. We set the name to contents viewer. So we can now reference that here. And I believe it's set plain text. Don't quote me on that. Try it. Let's try it. Why not? Just, you know, it's the worst that could happen. And the best thing that happens is it works. So that's what we got. You can now open a file. If you look in the documentation, oh, I could have looked here. For Qt, and of course this is for the C++ classes, so you know, there's no copying and pasting for the PyQt bindings. It's still handy, even if you aren't, you know, super familiar with C++ like me. Can figure out what's going on pretty well. So let's see, I was working on the set plain text. You can just find it here, and know that we don't need to do any sort of cleaning up, as the previous text in the field will be removed. So that's cool. So I can, let's say I open that one, and now we can look at the UI file that designer created. Cool, we're pretty much functional here. It's very meta to open yourself in yourself. Quit button still works, good to know. So let's add, maybe since it's a little weird that you can edit the text and then it won't be saved anywhere, like that's, you know, I can just delete my whole program. Oh, good to know. It adds some nice Control-Z functionality automatically. That's cool. Thanks, Qt. You can also, you know, normal shortcuts work. But then, you know, I shouldn't be able to edit that because this is file viewer. What we want to do is set plain the, oh, what's it called? Oh no. What to do is set the plain text area to read only. And this handy guide that I found that actually has, and we'll put this link in the description, actual little examples of using PyQt, not the C++ documentation. So we can look here to find set read only and see that, let's find that function. Looks like it probably takes a Boolean, and if we confirm looking at this handy guide, we can just call set read only. So how about when we set things up, we set the contents viewer set read only to true. Let's test. If we open our file, open ourselves, look, no more cursor. Nothing at all. That's awesome. At this point, we could call it done. There are a couple other nifty things that I like. You can set the placeholder text in this text box. So let's do that. Again, I found, you know, this stuff is just from looking at the C++ documentation, and sort of cross-referencing and testing with that other guide. I think it was set placeholder text. What if we do that? Look, set placeholder text will set a placeholder there. And then when you open, you're good. The other thing is if the person resizes, our text currently wraps, which is maybe desirable. But if you're like me, you spend more time looking at code than prose. And when things wrap, it's just annoying. So we want to turn off the wrap mode. And this is actually where I found this guide originally, was looking for how to set the wrap mode, because it's not entirely clear what you have to pass in from the C++ stuff. So if we set our line wrap mode to the mode, to one of these modes. So what I tried to do was, silly. That doesn't mean anything if you just pass that in. And if you just pass a string, then that's, it doesn't like any of that. What you need to do is pass in an actual mode from the widget itself, which we need to import. And look, 84 is in fact greater than 79. So I don't care. It's a little bit longer. Oh look, I recreated our form file. Let's run this again. Open our self, which is so great. When we go smaller, look, we get a scroll bar instead of wrapping. So we have now have a read-only, non-wrapping text field that has some initial placeholder value. We are importing this file that was generated from the UI file that we created in Qt Designer, which was very easy. This is also pretty readable, so you can see that, yeah, you just need to, subclass this and call it setup method, and you're off to the races, as it were. So I think that about sums it up. I'm going to open itself one more time just for fun. And yeah, that's about it. This is kind of the workflow I'm getting started with as I learn how things go in Qt, and I hope it's been helpful. If you have any recommendations or things you change or tips and tricks, let me know. And that's all.